What's up, everybody? It's me, your man, MG Marcas Grant. That is Michael F. Florio. And if you didn't know, it is draft season. That is spelled SZN, which means we are talking about some of the top incoming prospects for the 2021 season. Florio and I put together our list of the top 5 running backs and wide receivers. And hey, let's just kick this off, Florio. Let's look at our list of the top 5 running back prospects. Take me through who you've got.
I got Najee Harris from Alabama at 1, Javonte Williams, someone I'm really high on, 2nd, and then Travis Etienne 3rd. Pass-catching specialist Kenneth Gainwell comes in at number 4, and then 2 UNC backs in one list with Michael Carter rounding it out at number 5.
Well, we have the same name, just a slightly different order up top. I've got Travis Etienne at number 1 with Najee Harris at 2, Javonte Williams, who I do really like, at 3. You talk about Kenneth Gainwell as a pass-catching specialist. He just steps right in after Antonio Gibson left and sort of keeps the tradition going down there in Memphis. And then, just like yours, Michael Carter rounds out my top 5. But let's go back to the names sort of near the top of our respective lists there. And let's start down in Tuscaloosa with Najee Harris. Alabama just keeps pumping out running back after running back. Harris seems like the latest one. What are you seeing in him, and where do you think he's a good fantasy fit?
Yeah, he's awesome. He is a really big-bodied running back that has drawn some comparisons to former Alabama running back Derrick Henry. I don't want to put that much pressure on the kid, but he is awesome. You're seeing it there. Last year, he rushed for nearly 1,500 yards and 26 touchdowns. He added in 43 catches, 425 yards, and 4 TDs, so he could do a little bit in the passing game. He can definitely get it done on the ground. He forced a ton of missed tackles last year, the second most of all running backs, and I think that he would be a great fit on a team that needs a running back, someone like the Miami Dolphins, where he could just go in and get the lion's share of touches on the ground and even be a big part of their passing game out of the backfield. So I'm just hoping wherever he gets drafted, it is somewhere where there's a lot of touches up for grabs.
He really does have 3 down back potential. Strong, patient guy. And when you watch him, it generally takes more than one defender to bring him to the ground. And maybe not the greatest pass catcher, but certainly good enough to be a nice addition to any passing game. You talk about the Miami Dolphins. I think that's a great fit for him. He could reunite with his former Alabama teammate Tua Tagovailoa down there. If that doesn't happen, I think another spot that's good for him would be the Atlanta Falcons, where they are definitely in need of a game-changing workhorse running back, and I think that Najee Harris could be a nice addition there. Let's go over to Clemson, though. Travis Etienne. You talk about running backs and top talent coming out of Clemson. Travis Etienne looks like he's sort of the next big-time prime talent to come out of South Carolina there.
Yeah, Clemson is just a NFL factory. They just produce NFL talent after NFL talent, and he is the next in line there. They have another quarterback, I think, that's going to go pretty high as well, but Travis Etienne is looking like he can go very high, and I know he had a down 2020 for his standards, but in the 2 seasons prior, he rushed for over 1,600 yards in college. He had at least 13 touchdowns in each season, and last year, he really improved as a pass catcher with nearly 50 catches and almost 600 receiving yards, and that is what has me so intrigued, because I watch him and I see a really strong pass catching back, and that is what we want in fantasy nowadays. We want those dual threat backs, because those backs that just get it done on the ground aren't nearly as valuable in fantasy. So I'm really excited for another dual threat here, and I would love to see him end up on a team like the Jets, that has a bunch of touches up for grab and really are looking for a running back that can be used in the passing game for whoever is their quarterback next year. So a team like the Jets that has a lot of touches would be a great fit for him, in my opinion.
There are 2 things that stood out to me when I watched Etienne's tape. One, just the speed. He tends to win more with speed than with power. He's not necessarily going to be a guy that you see get in the hole and just run tacklers over, but he is going to get to the outside, and I think he's going to win a lot of those foot races there. The other part, as you mentioned, his hands, just soft hands, makes a lot of easy catches. I think that's going to be a big plus for him at the very next level. I do think the Jets are a great fit. I think the Steelers also another good fit. I think he's a guy that I don't want to put the Le'Veon Bell mantle on him quite yet, but I think in terms of being that guy who can run effectively, who can catch the football out of the backfield, and for a team that right now I think is very much in flux at the running back position, I think Etienne can step in and be productive. Oh, and by the way, I said coming out of South Carolina, I meant the state, not the school. I don't want the Clemson people and the South Carolina people to get mad at me. I wasn't speaking specifically about the university. All right. One more running back to touch on here, and it is Javonte Williams at North Carolina. Kind of just a big bruising back, but even splitting time with Michael Carter there this past season, found a way to make an impact. What do you like about him?
Yeah, I love that he is big and physical, like you said, but he's also a little shifty. He actually had the most missed tackles forced of all college running backs last year. And it wasn't just like, all right, he had a lot of games and some people had shortened seasons, because on a per touch basis, he also averaged the most missed tackles forced per attempt. So we know he is great there. He averaged the 4th most yards after contact per attempt. And he is really starting to take a lot of pride in his abilities as a pass catcher. He says he knows he can get it done on the ground, but he felt a little disrespected as people view Michael Carter as more of the pass catching back there. He went out this past season at UNC and put up career highs in catches, yards, and touchdowns in the passing game. So I really like Javonte Williams as an all-around back, and I'm hoping selfishly that he could end up somewhere where he could showcase that talent, somewhere like Atlanta with Arthur Smith in that offense, and just let him run wild there.
When I was watching tape to actually scout another UNC player, was watching some of the wide receivers there, what stood out to me is how much Javonte Williams just popped on tape when I wasn't even necessarily watching for him. And that said a lot to me. You talk about his improved pass catching abilities. That's always going to be a plus. And sort of like Najee Harris, he's a tough guy to bring down. It generally takes more than one defender to get Javonte Williams to the ground. Also, the fact that because he split time, doesn't have maybe as much tread taken off the tire as some of the other running backs in this draft. So I'm very excited about what his prospects could be. I think Atlanta is a good fit for him. I would also say, if Miami does not go the Najee Harris route, I think Javonte Williams could be a nice option for them down there in Miami and South Beach, pairing him behind Tua Tagovailoa. All right. So those are the running backs. Let's get to the wide receivers, because the last few years, this has been a position that's really been a game changer across the NFL and especially in fantasy. So let's take a look at our list of the top 5 wideouts that we think are coming into the draft. Florio, go first. Who do you have as your top 5?
I have Jamar Chase leading it, and he is a player that we didn't see at all last year, but he is still number 1. And then the reigning Heisman winner in DeVonta Smith at 2, his teammate Jaylen Waddle at 3. And then I think you could put a number of different receivers at this 4 or 5 spot, but I went with Rashad Bateman at 4 and Rondale Moore at 5, who just had an amazing pro day. His height doesn't scare me nearly as much as it scares others.
The pro day for Rondale Moore was ridiculous, and you saw Twitter sort of light up when that happened. Our top 3s are identical with Jamar Chase, DeVonta Smith, and Jaylen Waddle. I went with Kadarius Toney from the University of Florida at number 4, Rashad Bateman at 5. I did toy with the idea of throwing Rondale Moore in my top 5. He just misses my list. So let's just go down our top 3 from 1 to 3, starting with Jamar Chase. You mentioned we did not see him at all in 2020. He took the COVID opt-out, did not play for LSU. So you got to go back to 2019 to get the last bit of tape on him. But your thoughts on his game and where you'd like to see him land in the NFL?
Yeah, my thoughts on him is just that he is amazing. Like, you watch his tape from 2019 and it just like eye-popping play after eye-popping play from Jamar Chase. And what he did in that season was ridiculous. He put up almost 1,800 yards and 20 touchdowns, and he wasn't even the lead target on that team. Justin Jefferson had more targets, but it was Chase that had more yards and touchdowns, as he was playing really that outside role and just dominating as a 19-year-old in college. So I think the sky is the limit for him. He had 46 explosive plays that year, the explosive play being a catch of 15 or more yards. That was by far the most. I don't think anyone else had even 40 that season, and he is built like a running back playing the linebacker position. I don't worry about his route running or anything like that. I think that he can come in and have an effect like his former teammate Justin Jefferson did last year. And for fantasy, it would hurt my guy T. Higgins, but I think the Bengals would be a really good fit, pairing him up with his LSU quarterback in Joe Burrow. Or the Lions, just because I expect him to go early in the draft, and the Lions have a ton of targets up for grabs, so they could give him 150 right off the gate in year 1.
I do think there are a lot of options for places for Jamar Chase to land where he could step in and be an impact player. But you talked about his route running, and that maybe is sort of a knock against him. But I watched him, and I just felt like he's so athletic. He's so talented that sort of overcame any concerns you might have had about his route running. Plus, if you get him in the right spot with somebody who can sort of work on that and add some polish, then I think he can really go next level. But just everything else about him says that he is ready for the program right now to go in and be an impact player. You listed a couple of options in Cincinnati and Detroit for him to maybe step in and be an impact guy. I would say Arizona. I still think there's an opportunity for the Cardinals to add some help, and I think there's still a chance for Jamar Chase to step in there and be an impact guy down there in Arizona. The other option I would say would be the Miami Dolphins. And again, they added Will Fuller in free agency, but I still think there's some opportunities. Preston Williams has been sort of nice, but he's been kind of hurt the last couple of years. Devontae Parker may be close to his ceiling, and the more weapons you can put around a young quarterback, I think the better off that quarterback is going to be. So, speaking of quarterbacks from Alabama, let's look at a couple of wide receivers from Alabama, starting with DeVonta Smith, who the last time we saw him was lighting up the stage in the national championship game. And you can sort of debate whether or not he or Chase are going to be 1-2, how they will come off the board. But there's a lot to like with DeVonta Smith, Florio.
Yeah, there really is. You see right there, 1,856 yards. No other player was within 600 of him. Like, that is just ridiculous. He led this class, this wide receiver class, in yards, touchdowns, yards after the catch, yards after contact, first down catches, and explosive plays of 15-plus yards. He is just an absolute freak, and I know people will give you that he weighs around 170 pounds and be worried about that, but we just have never, ever seen a wide receiver, in my opinion, like a DeVonta Smith. Yeah, he's 170 pounds, but he has a wingspan like he's Kevin Durant, and he can just bend, and he's shifty, and he's super hard to stick with, and he's great at winning the battle at the line of scrimmage. I do not worry about him at the NFL level at all, and a dream fit for me in fantasy. I'm not sure he falls this far, but I think him on the Chargers would be so much fun. You put him with Keenan Allen and Austin Eckler and that improved offensive line. Good luck stopping Justin Herbert in that offense.
You talk about the weight, right? And at pro day, he weighed 170 pounds, and that kind of raised some red flags for people. But no less an NFL wide receiver aficionado than Chad Ochocinco says, hey, you got to just kind of throw that away. You have guys that are just built different. DeVonta Smith is one of them. And talk about the long arms. I mean, you immediately see that on tape, the fact that he's just so smooth and runs such crisp routes. I mean, you've got Jamar Chase, who's just a straight-up athlete. You've got DeVonta Smith, who's certainly athletic, but is also, I think, more of a technician when it comes to running routes. And I think that sort of will maybe get rid of some of the fears about his size and his frame. Just the fact that he can win and get separation with his route running will go a long way toward helping him. Throw in the fact that in the Alabama offense, he lined up all over the field, so he can win inside, he can win outside. That's going to really help his production, I think, on the next level. I would love to see him go maybe to a place like Philadelphia. The Eagles still looking for some wide receiver help. I don't think they've given up on Jalen Reagor after just 1 year, but hey, look, if he can step up and if Smith can step in and be productive, then suddenly you've got a couple of great wide receivers. Plus, you can reunite a couple of former Alabama teammates. Jalen Hurts, DeVonta Smith were together in 2018. If that doesn't work out, maybe the Patriots. I know they were busy in free agency, but I still don't think they have a true game breaker at wide receiver. DeVonta Smith potentially could be that guy. All right,
and hopefully
last
Bill
one.
Belichick wouldn't miss on that one.
I don't think he would miss, right? He hasn't been great at drafting wide receivers. I would think maybe this could turn the tide for him if they get DeVonta Smith. Let's stay in Tuscaloosa, though, to wrap this thing up. Jaylen Waddle, who we both had as our number 3 wide receiver. I mean, look, it's hard to be a standout when you're playing next to a guy like DeVonta Smith, but somehow Jaylen Waddle figured out a way to still make his mark in that loaded Alabama offense.
Yeah, he did. And DeVonta Smith was clearly the go-to number 1 target in this offense. But what Waddle did so well is he played on the other side of the field and just took the top off of the defense. He did get hurt and was limited to only 6 games last year. But in those 6 games, he averaged over 21 yards per catch. And that's nothing new. He's averaged over 17 yards per catch in every single one of his college seasons. And he only had 28 catches last year. 15 of them went for at least 15 yards. And his 4.19 yards per route ran ranked 4th in this class, right behind teammate DeVonta Smith. And you talk about a crowded wide receiver room in Alabama. He did this year with Smith and last year with having Smith, Henry Ruggs, and Jerry Jeudy all there, who were both first-round picks as well. So there was so much talent there, and he still stood out. He draws player comps to Tyreek Hill from some, and when you watch him play, you could see why, because he is just so explosive downfield. And because of that, I think he would be a really good fit with the Arizona Cardinals or the Las Vegas Raiders, right? Like, the Raiders drafted Henry Ruggs to be that deep threat, and it just didn't pan out in year one. Maybe they're still going back to him, and they have John Brown, but if they're not sold, they can get Waddle in the middle of the first round. And Arizona's been searching for a wide receiver to step up opposite of D-Hop. I know they signed AJ Green, but you bring in Waddle here to learn from those two and really be a field stretcher, what we hoped Andy Isabella could be for years. And that just opens up another dynamic for Kyler Murray in that Cardinals offense.
I mean, speed, and more speed is the thing that you take away when you watch Jaylen Waddle play. And you can just sort of watch defensive backs just trying to give him cushion, and he eats that up in a hurry. He's just such a nightmare to try to match up with on the outside, on the inside. You know, obviously you've got guys in the NFL who can run, but man, trying to just match up with Jaylen Waddle stride for stride is going to be a tough thing to do. Plus, when he gets the ball in his hands, can be very elusive after the catch. You talk about the fact that he was able to produce despite all the other guys around him who were productive and making big plays. I think that bodes well for what he can do at the next level. Look, I wouldn't mind seeing him in Chicago. I know they're still maybe having to try to figure out their long-term quarterback plans with Andy Dalton just having signed. But you add some more speed to that offense, maybe take some of the pressure off of Allen Robinson, add some speed to go along with a guy like Darnell Mooney, I think could really help stretch the field in that Chicago offense. Another option would be the Tennessee Titans, who I think are still looking for a solid number 2 receiver after A.J. Brown. They added Josh Reynolds in free agency, but I do think Waddle can go out and be a field stretcher, really open things up. Plus, you already know it's tough enough that you've got to try to defend Derrick Henry. If you have to stretch the field a little bit more, that just makes that Titans offense even more potent in 2021. So there you go. Those are our top prospects coming out of the draft. I mean, Florio, a lot of good stuff there for a lot of fantasy folks, huh?
Yeah, I think so. This is going to be a really fun offensive class. And Marcus, the draft is going to be here before we know it, and then it'll be training camp, and then it'll be fantasy draft season. So you're going to want to continue to get this great fantasy advice like this. And for year-round fantasy football goodness, make sure to download the NFL Fantasy Podcast at nfl.com/podcast or wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Absolutely. Plus, to find out where all of this year's draft prospects land, be sure to watch the 2021 NFL Draft presented by Verizon. This year, the draft is heading to Cleveland April 29th through May 1st. Exclusive access to the future stars of the NFL as they take the stage. The 2021 NFL Draft live on NFL Network, ESPN, and ABC. Take care. Happy drafting. We'll talk to you soon.